everybody, and welcome to GenFriends. I'm your host, Cheri Passing from Carolina Girls Genealogy. And as you can see, we've got a fabulous panel and a special guest. So let's get started with introductions. First of all, we've got Melissa Barker, our archive ladies here. Hi, Melissa.
Hi, everybody. Glad to be here.
Glad you're here. Laura Hedgecock from Treasure Chest of Memories is here. Hey, Laura. Laura, you're muted. There you go.
Yeah, but I'm about to sneeze. So hi real quick, and I'm muting.
Okay. Hawran's
Camera off.
Jenny's from like herding cats genealogy. Jenny.
How you doing?
Glad you're here. You never know what's going to happen on GenFriends. And last but not least, we've got Shelley Murphy, our family tree girl. Hello, Dr. Shelley.
Hello there, everyone. Glad to be here tonight. Need a Kleenex, Laura?
I'm good. I have a whole box. Thank you.
Okay.
Our very special guest and friend, I'm so glad you're here, is Amber Oldenburg. And she is, if you're trying to find her, she is at one branch at a time, genealogy, but she's come to talk to us about a very interesting topic, a record collection I had never heard of before. And I asked the panel and none of them had heard about it before. And as genealogists, aren't we always looking for new records? So you're going to talk to us about, it's the Women's Committee that was formed in World War I to register women. And so these records, is there an official title? Am I giving it, what's the official title?
So it was the Women's Committee for the Council of National Defense. So they were formed really 15 days after the United States declared war against Germany. And they were formed because the government realized that women had a really great power of organization and that there was a lot of women that they could rely on for the war effort.
Mm-hmm.
So not only did they complete a registration, but a lot of other activities during the war. But the registration is what we're here to talk about.
Yeah, the registration, because it's a form. People had to fill out this form, and then you're going to get all this information from the women on this form. Now, there's a list of states that did this, and not every state did it, unfortunately.
Well, yeah, there was 40 out of the 48 states that completed a registration. But not all of the cards have been discovered. A lot of them have gone missing. Precisely why I like to talk about this, because cards are still being discovered. Cool. So the more people become aware of this, the more likely they are to discuss this with their local historical society or other archives and repositories within their area, and they may discover more cards, which is the goal, because there's 4 million women were registered.
4 million.
4 million.
A lot of records. And so to think that they're all gone is rather heartbreaking. So
yeah. But I want those South Carolina ones, but I didn't see that on the list. So I've got to figure out where they might be. Where would I ask? Okay, if your state is not on the list, where would be a place just call like the archives? Where would you even look?
Well, provenance for records, it can be really kind of funky, right? Like, I mean, as genealogists, we know like something that we would think would be kept at like the county historical society could sometimes end up at a university archive. Right. So the cards were originally meant to be kept at the local level, because this is trying to find, to help the war effort at the local level. So it just depended on what that local organization ended up doing with the card. So like in Genesee County, Michigan, for example, the cards were originally in the local historical society until 1981. And then they moved them to the Michigan State Archives in Lansing. So it's really, there's no rhyme or reason to where the cards have ended up. So you just need to talk to everybody, because your circle of influence is different than mine.
Right.
And so you're traveling, the state of South Carolina, just literally anytime you're anywhere at a museum, any kind of archive, mention these cards, mention the registration, and see what the archivist can pull out, because you might be.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to ask a simple question. What are they registering to do?
Okay. So,
good question, Shelley.
And I'm thinking of states,
So there were 10 10 different divisions for work that women could have experience or want training in. And then there were 154 different occupations or areas of experience that a woman could possibly have been trained in or wanting trained in. So even a homemaker, if she was raising poultry at home, she would register, she could circle that as something she had experience in. If a woman wanted to train as a nurse or had experience as a nurse, she could indicate that on her card. So they covered a wide range of experience that women could possibly have that could help in the war effort in any way possible. Another one was if a woman could drive an automobile, if she had experience driving. And the reason why they were looking for something like that was because in the local areas where men may have been off to the war, other women needed transportation, or maybe they needed help with driving ambulances in the local area. So these women could be then called upon to take women to their jobs or to maybe help the fire department or ambulance, you know. So they asked if they were able to speak foreign languages.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So
Gosh, the information you can find. I mean, it's so hard sometimes to find out information about women, and it's like all these different questions, you know, you would find out so much if your
This just brings
ancestor was
even
on
more to holding down the country while the war is
Yes.
going on. And you know what I mean?
Exactly.
The strength and the volume of the women, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
yes, well,
Okay.
they even asked what their health was like. So what their eyesight, their general health.
Oh, wow.
They asked what their educational background is, if they were currently employed, if they had a reference for that. So you can learn where a woman went to college or even how long she was in school for, you know, even if she just finished, you know, 8th grade or something, it would indicate that, or where she might have been employed, how many children she had or dependents, it will ask.
Yeah.
So there's a lot that could be gleaned from them that you would not be able to find in another record, really, except maybe unless she kept like a diary where she really understood what was going on in her life and her experiences. For example, one of the cards, this is one of my favorite ones that I've looked at. It's out of Miami County, Indiana. They have an index and have digitized over 3,000 of their registration cards. They're available on their website, but it's for this woman. Her name is Manda Odeker. I can show you her card if you'd like to see it.
Absolutely. Show us what one looks like. Yeah, you should have. Yeah.
Amber, while you're pulling that up, remind me again, what would these records be called? Are they called something different in different states, or?
It depends on how they catalog them, but they were created by the Women's Committee for the Council of National Defense.
Okay.
Women's Committee.
You know, the states maybe would call it differently. It just depends on how they decide to catalog them, which can be kind of frustrating too. But I tend to just look for women's registration cards, World War I, use kind of keywords like those. Let me get her card up here. I want to make sure I have both images of it so I can show you. All right. So this is what one of the cards will look like. As you can see, Women's Committee for Council of National Defense, it indicates the county and the state, and we see her full name, and we even have her Mrs. A.S., so we get the initials of her husband.
Right.
We have her address. We know how old she is.
I get the telephone number.
Speaking of telephones.
Exactly, right? We see that she's married. We see if she's naturalized, because also these cards, they were not just intended for American citizens. They were for any woman who was loyal to America. So even if she was not naturalized, they were encouraging women to register, even if they did not speak English. So they printed cards in other languages such as French, Spanish. They even had them in Italian, Hebrew. I have not been able to see any of these foreign language cards, but I did see an example because the women's committees for the various states put out reports, generally in about 1919, reporting on what they did. And out of California, I was going through one of them, and it was out of San Diego County, and or whatever county is south of San Diego. I apologize that I can't recall that offhand, but it had made a note for their registration that the Mexican consul, so this is a foreign government, printed 1,000 cards in Spanish for the registration of women in this California county.
Wow.
Wow.
So you had a foreign government aiding in this. So it's really, it's an extraordinary collection of records. But so you can see below the training and experience. So you
Right.
see the 10 different divisions. So agricultural, clerical,
Mhm.
domestic. This is where you see things like cooking, care of
Language, yeah.
children. The government valued homemakers even. This was kind of a big deal. They were showing that their work was just as important as anyone else's. So this is kind of revolutionary. But we can see here on number 106, she had circled that she had experience as a teacher. And if you
Teacher
look
of
on
children. Yeah.
yes, and on teaching children, but that's what I really wanted to show was that. Let me show you. I'm going to do a new share to show.
And poultry raising.
Yes. So this is the back of her card. So
Okay.
this is always important to flip the cards over. You can see her health here. She was actually registered at her home on April 24th, 1918, because it says where it happened. We see her health. But in the remarks section, it says that she was a teacher in public schools for 2 years. Now, I thought that was really fascinating. So I went and I did some little dirty, quick research on her, and literally nowhere else in any record available, from census records to her obituary, does it ever list that she taught in a school.
Oh, wow.
Cool.
So the family would only ever know about this had it just come down with personal knowledge or a diary of some form.
Mhm.
But there's this card that indicates her
Yeah.
experience as a teacher, which I
So
thought.
so did they go like door to door? Like how did women volunteer? This wasn't required, right?
It was not required. So they would conduct the survey in several different ways. Either they would go door to door, or they could register women at locations such as offices, factories, libraries, polling stations, churches. Most locations did a combination of the two. So they would train women as registrars, and then they could go door to door or set up at a particular location. Even department stores, like in Michigan,
Wow.
they were set up in department stores registering women.
Yeah, so
So-
that's
Did they
one of
embed-
my,
Go ahead, Laura. I'm sorry. Go
that's
ahead.
one of my two questions is one is how did, because I'm in Michigan, how did Michigan start off so strong in this? Was it a person of more prominence that was in the state and kind of led it more, or how did that happen?
I think they just had a very well organized committees at the state and all the local levels, because Michigan they registered 98% of the state's women.
Yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait to dig
I
into
can't wait to get in there. I'm
Wow.
sitting here running. Okay, who's there? Who's there? During this time. Yeah.
Yeah, and my other question is, because I saw all the questions with nursing and being willing to train as a nurse. Now, how did this cross over with the Red Cross? I have pictures of my grandmother, which I think were around World War I, and what I think is a Red Cross nurse's uniform. So how did that cross over?
So I'm not exactly sure how they coordinated that, but women would volunteer or say that they had experience in nursing. So I imagine they would reach out, they would connect in some way to the Red Cross. I actually have a card. Let me pull that one up. I can show you, because it's the notation on the back. Sometimes those remarks are
Yeah.
the best ones.
Yeah.
So
And
I'll show you.
there's a historical department of the Red Cross. So you can go and
I have contact. I never heard back. I have contact.
really,
But I will
Oh,
try
that breaks
again
my
now that
heart.
it's back on the top of my head.
Yeah,
So this woman, she said in her remarks
I see it.
that she would, if husband was called, so if he was called to service and he had to go fight in the war, she wishes to be a Red Cross nurse. And I
Oh.
imagine this is because she wanted to be sent overseas with him.
With him.
Or in
Oh.
hopes of being near him.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Why do I keep thinking Revolutionary War type stuff, even though there was no card? but the women had
Yeah, because the
to,
women would go. Yeah.
yeah, they step up. They went with the soldier. Well, in all of the wars, the women are
Yeah,
right
they
there
wanted
per
to go.
se.
Right.
But this is
It
fascinating.
is. It's amazing. I'm like, I'm gonna start asking everywhere I go.
Please
Yes.
do.
See, yeah.
Like I tell
So,
everyone,
Amber,
I'm like, I do. I travel a lot. I mean, if
Yeah.
you know me, if you
Yes.
see me, I'm around.
Everywhere. You're
And
everywhere.
my husband thankfully is really good about this because I'm like, oh, there's another little historical society. Let's stop and talk to them. So I really do. I go everywhere. I hand out my cards because I cannot reach every place in the country. As much as I wish I could be on the road
Yeah.
365 days a year, I can't. So this is where you all come in, is you will talk to the people in your area or anywhere where you are traveling to see if these cards exist. Well, yeah, I mean, even England, they did a registration in 1915. They passed an act in Parliament to require registration of every individual between the ages of 15 and 65. And there's very few of those registration cards that even exist anymore.
Yeah.
So
I think things just get thrown away. I mean, they're like, the war's over. We don't need this
Or
anymore.
they didn't know what they are, and
They
they're
don't
just
have the
sitting in an
space to
envelope.
keep them. Yeah, they don't have the space to keep them. I'm sorry, Jenny, you had a question?
Yeah, no, I was just saying, how did you find these? How did you stumble across this? I mean,
Hey, this is a great question.
But she's just that good.
I know. Besides that, of
No,
course.
no, I really have to thank my really good friend, Sue Caldwell. She is a county genealogist for Jasper County, Indiana. She works at the Jasper County Historical Society. It was because of her that I found these, but I found Sue because I'm a history nerd. I really love social history, adding that historical context to my family history research, because that's what makes it interesting, right?
Yeah. Oh,
so
yeah.
I follow a lot of academics, and there's a Midwestern History Conference that happens every single year in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And I wanted to attend, and I was looking at the program, and I saw that a genealogist was speaking, and I thought, well, that's interesting, because typically historians and genealogists, right? We haven't found a way to connect, which is very sad.
Well, we do in Virginia.
So anyway, I saw what she was speaking on, and I immediately reached out to her, and I was like, I have never seen or heard about these. And I immediately went up to Rensselaer and met with her. So it was because of those cards. But at the same time, in 2018, the Michigan Women's Historical Council, I don't think I'm naming it right, they did a centennial project to try to locate as many of these cards as possible. And they worked to digitize them. And so that's why there's cards, like there's 23,000 cards for Grand Rapids.
Oh,
like
wow.
the Grand Rapids area that are available on the Grand Rapids Library website. So again, this shows you that you just never know where they're going to end up.
Wow. And so for a lot of states, they might be digitizing up somewhere, but we didn't know to look for them.
Right. So for Jasper County, for example, those cards were really discovered in like the early 2000s. They had been in there, but no one had gone through everything in the Historical Society. And they found this wooden cabinet, and they opened it up, and there's all these cards. And what's great is that this cabinet was literally designed to house the cards. So I've been to the Indiana State Archives and gone through the state committee's correspondence, and it talks about how much the cabinet costs and where you could order it from and who's manufacturing it. And it's this beautiful piece of furniture that houses these cards.
Oh, wow.
That's so cool. That's so cool.
Oh, that's so interesting. So the other thing I thought was super interesting with all the different kinds of jobs is that in 1917, they're acknowledging there could be women lawyers and doctors and chemists.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
things like that. So where it might not be well known, there were those women.
Yes. And I think that had a lot to do with the women who were running the committee at the national level. So out of the 11 appointees, 7 of them had strong ties to the suffrage movement. Because if you think about the time, women did not have suffrage.
Not until 1920,
1918.
1920s.
Yes. So I really feel like that was a big part of this, right? And so even Dr. Anna Howard Shaw, so she was the chairman at the national level.
Mhm.
I want to make sure I get her quote right. So she said that their serving on this committee and the work that was going to be done was the greatest opportunity to work for suffrage that had ever been open to her.
Wow.
And she said that she believed that if the suffragettes just kept their heads, they were going to disarm more people than they dreamed of. So they were going to be able to show what women were capable of,
Mhm.
and that we should be entitled to the same rights as
Sure.
men.
Oh,
So
okay,
it looks
'cause
like Nara scanning them.
I'm
Say that
sorry.
What'd you
It
say,
looks
Shelley?
like Nara's in process of scanning some.
None of these records are kept at the national level. The cards were meant to be kept at the local level because that's where women were going to be needed, was at the local
Okay.
level. So they needed to be
Got
able
it.
to see who could drive, who could,
Right.
you know,
Yeah,
make
did-
bandages or can
Mhm,
food or do
mhm.
other things, knit.
How did women find out about this? Were there ads in the newspaper? What,
Okay.
like if we search the newspaper, we'd be able to find the ads for it and see where the local
Oh,
registration
yes.
places may have been?
Massive publicity campaigns.
Okay.
They even had, you know, women who were in charge of just publicity for the camp, for anything that the Women's Committee was doing, but particularly the registration,
Yeah.
because they did want to spread the word. Paul Honor, he was from Michigan. He actually designed the national poster
Ah,
for the women's registration campaign. It's a beautiful poster. I absolutely love it. This is what it looks like.
oh,
Um,
wow.
oh my
so I-
gosh,
that's nice.
I love that there's all these ties to Michigan, right? So it's
I
just-
know, I'm getting so excited by this.
Yes. So there were
And that's the Michigan division.
Wow.
Okay.
so they had they would print things in the newspaper. The Ladies' Home Journal regularly
Oh.
ran articles related to the Women's Committee and the registration because they did really want to spread the word. They
Mhm.
wanted women to understand that it was completely voluntary and that
Yes.
even if they were registering for service in their way, that it wouldn't automatically mean that their husband would be called to duty. Because a lot of women were very
Oh.
fearful of that. If I can
Yes.
show that I'm independent and that I can work, then
He's
they're going to
gone.
think I don't need my husband. So they're going to call
Gotcha.
him to service.
Gotcha.
So they really wanted to make that clear. And they wanted
Mhm.
to make it clear that, again, it was absolutely 100% voluntary, but it was open to everyone. And that it was just to see what work could be done by these women because they're
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. I was just
No,
gonna
go
say,
ahead.
I'm amazed at how quickly they got this together.
yes,
I mean, it wasn't like a year into the war.
Women,
Decided.
women,
Women, right,
Exactly,
right.
women.
exactly. Yeah,
absolutely
Yeah.
the power of women and our organizational skills.
Yes, getting
They
it
really relied
done.
on when they created the committees at the state level and local levels. They
Mhm.
were, you know, when they did the state level, they were looking at women who were already involved in women's organizations at that
Right.
state level.
Yeah,
So then they
yeah.
knew who to call on at the local level. So they already had, you know, there was already this like network of women who were organizing in one
mhm.
way or another, whether that was the suffrage movement or
Right.
temperance or whatever it might have been. But yes, it does. It shows that women were capable of amazing things. Sorry, my cat keeps trying to join. She
Oh,
thinks
you know
I want
what?
to talk.
That's okay. We
I
have
love it.
lots of different kinds of visitors. I mean,
Yeah, my dog was here
yeah.
for a second. She's fallen asleep. I'm sorry.
yeah,
to say.
that's okay. Everybody's welcome on GenFriends. Everything is welcome on Gen.
Well,
So I have a
appreciate that.
question.
Yes.
Alrighty.
So, and again, and for my work that I do, I've got 8 counties and always in the historical societies. You know, that's a base to find records, or the Library of Virginia or the local public library, whatever. And so for me to start even asking the question, what would be your number one? Because it seems like there's different names somewhat. I mean, how could I frame, how would one frame to say, or say I walk into Melissa's place at the archives there in Houston, Houston,
Tennessee.
yeah. And
Tennessee.
ask her, hey, do you have these cards during World War I where women registered to do whatever? Or how can I frame that to see? Because again, I'm in there and that's just another look to say, hey, do y'all have any of these things? And I'm going to check the Library of Virginia right now and see if they have anything. And again, because I don't know, because most of the millions and millions of things that they have all come typically from the local level.
Mm.
And one of the counties I work in is Albemarle County, Virginia. And I know there's scanning going on right now. And there was like 300 boxes that, and things. So not knowing the time frame I do for this now, but how would one actually go in, Melissa? This is what I'm looking for. Do you have any idea? Do you all have any? And Melissa's at Archives. That's what I'm saying, using her as an example.
Well, I usually begin by asking if they have anything related to women during World War I.
Okay.
Because a lot of times they'll be just cataloged under something very general like that. So seeing if there's any kind of records there, and then you can begin to talk about, like, give a nice little elevator speech about what these cards are, how amazing these are. Because then that archivist may not have anything in their facility, but they have a network of archivists that they talk to. And so then they can start talking to other people as well. So explain exactly what these cards were, why they were created, who created them, at the state, local level. Like really, it's even towns, right? So like Grand Rapids has a ton of them, right? Or county level. So look for women's war work, women's work during World War I, anything like that. Because again, the Women's Committee for the Council of National Defense, they also ran Liberty Loan drives. They sewed socks for soldiers. They had food preservation campaigns. They had 14-minute speeches that these women would go and give. They had propaganda committees where they were out to spread how, like, it is amazing what they have done throughout the war. So it wasn't just the registration.
So
they
I
had 10 different divisions of work, including the registration.
I did what you just said with the Library of Virginia, and it says, just so for folks to say, Virginia's participation in World War I, and I'm on the women's section. So it came up first, the participation in World War I. And
Share your screen.
there's a
Shelley.
library guide. So let's see if they're there. Do you want me to share this?
That'd be
When
great.
you
if
get
you
done, I want
could.
to share mine. I found something I want to
Oh,
share
good.
too.
Go
Look at
ahead,
this, Amber, they're
Melissa.
finding stuff for you.
Well, I just wanted to, I
And-
was thinking about Tennessee because I'm the archivist at the Houston County Tennessee Archives and Museum. And so I was thinking, I've not ever heard of these records. We don't have them locally, I can tell you that. And so, but at the time we weren't considered, we're a rural county, but at the time we really weren't that rural. We're much more rural now. But I went to Chronicling America. You were talking about newspapers. And I went to Chronicling America and just searched in Tennessee newspapers, and so this is what I found. Can you see that?
Oh, yes.
Yep,
Look at
look at
that.
that.
Make it bigger. Official order parade for Friday, Market Street. Formation of the parade by the Women's Committee Council of Defense for enlisting student nurses.
Awesome.
And then it comes down here and members of the organization participate in the parade are, and it gives you who is in the parade.
Yeah.
Women's Committee is going to be in the 2nd Division, Central Red Cross members, County Red Cross, Suburban Red Cross, Colored Red Cross.
Yep.
Well, the good thing about this too is listening to Amber talk about this. If we had done a search for our family, or the women in our family, and we'd seen them in this list, we wouldn't know what this was. We would
We
just said,
wouldn't
oh,
know
they
what it
participated
was.
in something. We don't
Right.
know what it was, but we found them in this parade. But now we know what this means.
Well,
what
here's
they were
another.
actually
I mean,
doing.
on this same page, there's this one: 3 days examination of city babies' clothes. It says, then says progress under the Women's Committee Council of Defense.
See, it's everywhere. We just didn't know it.
So that was
didn't
part
know.
of
There's a
their
baby picture of Mary Alice Burke.
Yes. So they
Anyway, I
also
just
were
want-
doing campaigns for health and for babies and children. So they would go in I was reading in Indiana, they were testing children for various diseases and things like that. One thing that the states did, now not every state did, I mentioned they completed a report that they would then submit.
Right.
Indiana has, again, I live in Indiana and not biased to it in any way, but they actually have the best report that I've ever seen, because they do go through all 92 counties in Indiana. So they name all the women who were parts of the committees, the various organizations within that, so the divisions. And then they'll talk about exactly what work was accomplished within that county.
Wow.
I have an image I can show you.
Sure.
It's so cool. I love it. Again, I'm not, it's just, I love Indiana. I never
Of
thought
course
I would
you
say
do.
that, but it's
Don't leave Michigan out. Come on now.
really good report. So here's Knox County, Indiana, for example. This is their report. So you see all of the women who participate on the various committees.
And look what they gave them.
And then we can
Okay.
see in Knox County, they sewed 443 socks for soldiers.
Yes.
They
Wow.
registered 13,846 women. They
Wow.
examined 2,917 babies, and see how
Good.
they
Yeah.
collected almost $500,000 for Liberty loans. They distributed cookbooks. They did work for the Red Cross. So there was a lot of other projects that these committees were working on besides the registration. So it's an amazing part of history that is
That we've
really
never heard of.
unknown.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So,
So
even
for
if
Grand
you can't
Rap-
find a registration for your female ancestors, it's very likely if they were alive and, and
Yes.
thinking from the youngest person who could register was 16. So that you had to be at least 16 years old to register. The oldest was 100. So if you had
Wow.
anybody that was, between these ages in 1917 and 1918, it's likely that they were impacted in some way, participated in some way
Wow.
in this amazing.
So when we find these, we're either going to find a card or we're going to find a list from the report, or no?
It just depends on what is there.
Okay.
it's really hard to say.
Well, I'm thinking of the Grand Rapids when you said that, and thinking of that time period. Is there a list of those that the 98% that registered or whatever?
No, there's not a complete list. So they
Okay,
just have
it's
the
just a
23,000 cards from Grand Rapids are available on their library. There's the cards from Genesee County, Michigan, that are available at the state archives for Michigan. Hang on, let me have my notes here so I can tell you exactly where
It's
the other ones
Lansing,
are.
yeah.
They have they have about 800 cards from Midland County.
Yeah.
So Midland, and their index, and they're on their county's historical society's website. And when they would index these, a lot of times it's just like you get the name and maybe some of that biographical detail, but they don't give you all of the experience of the
What's
women.
on
You
the
actually
card.
have to get the card to
Word.
see that.
Yeah.
I just looked Matt's grandmother that was in Grand Rapids. She was born in 1903, so she would have just
See, my grandmother's
been
1904.
young.
She just missed it. What a wonderful resource.
But
if you can find
The,
these
the
cards.
auntie, the older sister, would be eligible.
There you
If
go.
my
Yeah, things
grandmother's
like that, yeah.
1904, she's got a sister 2 years older.
Yes, but I think sometimes some girls maybe lied about their ages.
Oh,
so just take a
absolutely.
look at them
Yeah.
and see if they're there. Don't just discount it because of the age at
Exactly.
the time.
That's right. That is
Yeah.
right.
And I want to show you something else that's really great.
Yeah.
So the federal government, so the National Committee, printed a lot of cards to distribute to the various local level committees. But they would ask for like a donation, maybe $1, a dime, to kind of help print more cards. So if women would offer a donation, they would give them this pin. And I found one on eBay.
Oh,
And it's my
yay.
very favorite thing. And it's so tiny. So I hope that you'll be able to see it. Like, it's literally the size of a dime, which I think is so funny. But it's in such beautiful condition still for
Oh, wow.
How
being
cool is
from
that?
1918.
That is cool.
Wow. See, another one of those things that if we found that, we
Right.
wouldn't know what it was, that's
Well, Amber,
amazing.
I do have a question. Do you know if there are any museums that are collecting, like you have that pin? So there must be other memorabilia and other things that are surrounding that, or because I know we have there are World War I museums, or there are archives and things that are museums that highlight World War I. So I just wondered if you've heard of any of them having it.
I haven't, and I haven't really gone to look because I'm always like just trying to find more cards, but I know I've reached out to them about cards and they haven't. So I'm not quite sure. It's
Yeah.
a good question and one that I should pursue when I have time.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
could find
There's
some
one
cards.
in
We want the,
Maryland.
that's nice and everything, but we want the cards.
Yeah, it's the cards that I really love. Again, the social history involved with it all, you know, just everything that they have done really can enrich your female ancestors' story if you can find anything related to that. And Melissa, unfortunately, really like only 10% I think of Tennessee registered, or maybe they didn't even, was it them that didn't even register? I feel like one of the states, and I want to say it was Tennessee, because they had such low
South Carolina.
numbers.
I know that's what you're going to say. Never mind, it was South Carolina. I'm not going to find anything
They
about
just
you
had
people.
such low numbers. Which
Well,
one was it?
I'm a professional genealogist too, and
Oh,
I've
yeah.
been doing research in Tennessee for 34 years. So I've never heard of these records. That doesn't mean they don't exist somewhere, but I've never heard of them. So
Yeah. So about 10% of women registered. They had really low counts in the South, and I don't know if that's just the thinking then, you know, if they didn't really want people asking questions about their home life and what they were doing, you
although
know.
Tennessee was very instrumental in getting the suffrage, you know, movement, because we were the ones who ratified. We were the state that helped to ratify it. But yeah, yeah, I was just thinking about where I've not seen these records. So I mean, I just saw some newspaper articles about it, and that one I showed you was actually from Chattanooga, which is on the other side of the state from me, in East Tennessee, which is more. I mean, I don't want more liberal, or more would be more prone. It was a larger city and maybe more prone to do something like that, and not necessarily rural.
Yeah. Well, the Midwest was really like the most successful. So 69% of the state of Indiana's women were registered. So that's
that would be a
really
good study
cool.
to see why that was.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it would be super interesting.
Yeah.
It's
I think you really
very
have to get into
interesting.
the historical, like the context for that time, like what were people's beliefs and understanding of what this registration was. And I think that's why the committee really tried to dispel any kind of rumors or misunderstandings related to the registration. But you know, if you're not reading Ladies Home Journal all the time, you maybe weren't even seeing that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
exactly.
my question is then what happened? I mean, you know, we talk about starting and then all the stuff. What happened? How did it end? I mean, did it like
Armistice.
I mean, like anything else, like World War II, they just sent the women home and said, go on home, and we don't need you no more, kind of
That's
thing.
basically what they did at the end of the war.
Yeah.
Well,
That's it, really.
Wasn't the Red
Over.
Cross though instrumental as the men were coming home?
Yes. So even the committee was still helping, like some of these local level committees were helping men adjust, you know, sending care packages still. But a lot of it, they were already disbanded by 1919.
Okay.
But
Wow.
a lot, I haven't like dived deep into all of the rest of the history of the committee. There was like, I think 4 huge boxes of records just at the Indiana State Archive related to the committee. And I was really just looking for information related to the cards.
Oh, absolutely. Because that's where, you know, that's where we get the information that we're looking for, you know, to add to our family history. So I'm just thrilled to know that there's another set of records I can start looking for. And maybe they've got some somewhere, you know, because
well, if you had any female ancestors in Indiana, they are available for Jasper County. And actually, Family Search came in and scanned their cards. So they're available in the historical images section on Family Search.
Oh, wonderful.
Miami County, Indiana's cards are on their own website. So even if you just Googled Miami County, Indiana women's registration, you'll get the link to that. The Grand Rapids are digitized and available on the library's website, as I said. South Dakota has an index of cards, but you can't see the cards unless you go to the archive or reach out to the archivist because there's a particular one you're looking at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Iowa only has a few cards, and they're in their Iowa Women's Archive and their digital archive at the University of Iowa. So again, this shows you how they end up in a weird place.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
one of the state committee members donated papers, or her family donated papers to this Iowa University of Iowa archive, and there were some cards in that collection of papers.
Oh, wow. Wow.
So they only have a few
Cool.
cards, and that's
Wow.
because
Yeah.
we think
Yeah.
that they were sent to that woman.
Mhm,
Sure.
mhm.
So like, there's just no rhyme or reason. That's why you just got to talk about them to everybody you know. And when
in these,
if you find any, please
Yes.
let me
Yeah.
know.
All
Yes,
right.
exactly.
Definitely.
We'll have the
Another
link to your website and everything, you know, in the
Yeah.
blog post and on the information on this video so that
Thank
people can
you.
send
Thank
these
you.
to
You mentioned that they had to do reports because you can tell this is all coming from military. The whole setup, the register, you know, and I think of the field offices of the Freedmen's Bureau and anything else, you know, I'm just seeing military all over the place. The registration, what can you do, what you bring into the table. So in these reports, and you mentioned earlier that they either the committee or the state or whoever had to send reports. Where did those reports, did those go to feds? Because it's this, you know, where did those reports go?
Well, I don't know for sure that they were required to do them. A lot of the committees did. So example, Michigan has one, Illinois, Indiana, Washington State. These were just generated, and I imagine they went to the state level. They probably did send them to the national committee,
Mhm.
but these were like literally published like books.
Okay.
So like you can go see the
Because I would go to
Indiana one
RG62
on the Internet
if they
Archive. It's
got
available on the Internet
reports.
Archive. I'm still trying to find Iowa's report because the cards that are available at the University of Iowa in their Women's Archive, they're cards that look different than the cards that I showed you. Like, so they
Oh.
looks like they may have printed their own cards, and they
Huh.
even have a little notation at the bottom that this is the card for every patriotic woman. Like, so they were really like
Love
Oh.
that.
hitting
Yeah.
home that this is your patriotic duty is to register, but they don't have anything on the back. They're
Oh.
different, so they
Oh.
look slightly different.
Huh. Very interesting. This
I'm
has been so much
wondering-
fun. Like I said, we love hearing about.
I'm
new-
on the Grand Rapids Library site trying to find it.
You'll be up all night now.
I'm gonna
I
send
know.
somebody there, so.
I know. Everybody's gonna be looking for this kind of stuff. And so
And
appreciate it.
again, most of my family are there in Grand Rapids. They're either,
Well,
I'm gonna
good.
say
Maybe
up
you'll find
north,
some- you'll have to-
you
you'll
know, a
have to
couple
let us know if
counties
you find
away,
some.
but we're all in Kent County. And, you know, from 1860, whatever, you know, and just a few counties and we're all there. Plenty of women and plenty of babies, you know what I'm saying, for all of us and stuff. And that's why I'm curious to ask, because again, you think federal says, do this, you know, get these women going and whatever, and registering. Again, it's the cards we want, like you
Yeah.
said. They're and I agree, they're not going to hold those cards. You know, I'm saying at the federal the record group 62,
yeah.
they're not going to hold the cards, and it's got to come down to the local level. So
Yeah.
excellent, you know, just another piece. So, but
And-
anyway,
and
we'll
it
have
just-
your link and stuff that we can
Yeah.
share.
Yeah.
Can I share one last card?
You can share as much as
Sure.
you want.
Well, and I love this one again because, as I said, you know, the Iowa card. So this is the, you know, the patriotic duty,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
This card, I love what she said, or what they remarked on her card. So let me make sure I can share it right. So I'm going to make sure I have it open. Okay, there we go. So this is out of Miami County, again, Indiana. And this is for the remark says here, Mrs. Hooper has been visiting here 3 weeks. It would not be home at Elkhart in time to register and did not care to be a slacker.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And that's
I love
Elkhart,
it.
Indiana, maybe?
That's where she was from, but she was in Miami County. And so she
Oh.
would not have made it home to Elkhart in time to register. And so she didn't want anyone to think that she was
She
not.
was a slacker. Yeah.
I love
Wow.
it.
Well, you know, that's just another point too. Sometimes we get so focused on one specific location that we forget to, you know, maybe they were visiting, maybe, you know, look where the other people in the family were living at the time and see if maybe they registered there.
Right.
I mean, they could have been visiting a close friend. You just never know. So I love that.
Absolutely.
I love that so
Yeah.
much.
I love that it gives you an insight into her, like her character, like who she
Yeah.
was as a
Yeah.
woman
Yeah.
at that
Yeah.
time. Again, something that you are not going to find in our traditional records that we're
Oh.
using as genealogists.
Yep.
So that's just why I think these are just such incredible, extraordinary cards. And I
are.
really hope that more
Yes.
can be found. So
And I
Well,
can
I
just
hope
see it
we
now.
can
I can see it
find
now.
some.
You using that in a title to a presentation. So I wouldn't have been seen as a slacker.
well, my presentation title is just the largest
Yeah, I
women's
know.
census that you've never heard about.
And that's a
Uh-huh.
good title too.
Yeah,
Wow,
yeah.
that piques interest as well. Absolutely. I'd love to hear you give that somewhere. So,
Well, you mentioned it. I'm giving it at the UGA Summit of Excellence
all
here.
righty. Well, I'm participating in that too. So I will definitely see you there for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Good. I'm
Yeah.
excited.
Yeah.
This
So
is really exciting.
is there
I
anything
love
that we
this.
didn't ask you that you would like to say about these records before we end tonight?
No, I think we really talked about a lot of it. I think that we covered a lot. I think everyone should have a really good understanding of what these are and how exciting they are.
You get
And
excited about looking for them now.
Yes, I know. Be ready to be on the hunt for them. So.
Exactly. Exactly. Thank you
Or
so
we're going to have to get that Grand Rapids stuff.
Yeah. Shelley's like, I can't go to bed tonight until I start looking.
I
Yeah,
know,
just
right?
Just go to the Grand Rapids Library's website. They're there. I can send you.
Oh, they're online then.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm looking at them, Shelley.
Girl, put that link in the chat. I gotta find my people.
Yeah, they digitized all of their cards front and back. Theirs are in their PDF format when you
And I'll
download
check
it.
Virginia on
Yeah.
the 8 counties
We'll
I
all be on
work
the
out
hunt
of.
for you. We'll all be on the hunt, and everybody, all of our
Thank
viewers, be
you.
on the hunt. Be on the hunt for Amber, so that
Please. And
we can
thank you.
get a lead to where all these cards are, so we can all find our people.
We
in
want to see great things about this, Amber.
Thank you for coming on and sharing this with us. You know, like you said, the biggest woman census that we've never heard about. So this is fabulous. Thank you. We love hearing about new records, and we've appreciated.
Oh God, and they're in
Honest.
alphabetical order. I'm
Oh,
not going
she's
to
and
get
we've lost Shelley.
She's gone.
You've
Already.
lost, sorry, you have officially lost us.
Exactly. So for our viewers,
Nice to meet you, Amber.
we're so grateful to have you watch. And if you find anything, please leave it in the comments. Or if you found them before, lucky you, they were there. And let us know if you found your people in it. And go look and put the link in if you find something, so that we can continue to share this with other people. And so with that, we will see you next time on GenFriends. Bye, everybody.
Right.